You
Oliver Ekman-Larsson might be the most overrated player in the league.
You lose for a sixth straight year, no matter what the circumstances are. It's a joke.
Who's going to overtime goal?
You know what? Just Barry Cocconiano.
KK!
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I'm changing my mind. Bro.
Oh man!
Ladies, gentlemen, fellow sports fans, and hopefully soon to be uncontested subscribers, welcome back for episode 61, and we got a massive guest. He's ringside host on Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada, Campbell River's very own. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, Kyle Bukauskas?
Gentlemen, thank you. It's great to be with you. I feel I got big shoes to fill here. Episode 61, Aaron Judge just hit his 61st homer the night before we're doing this taping here. So sounds like we got a big show in store.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk a little about you, Kyle. We're going to talk about the Canadian teams. Obviously, training camp is fully underway here. But let's start with this, because I told a couple buddies this week, like, oh, we got Kyle Bukauskas coming on the show Thursday. And every person I told said, you got to ask him about his hair. So I'm so sorry if you get this question all the time. But in a sport with a lot of receding hairlines, how do you have what some say is the best hair in hockey?
Yeah, well, I think I got, I don't know if it's, certainly wouldn't call it the best. I'm just fortunate that, it hasn't started receding yet. And I think that's just a benefit of my mother's hairline as opposed to my father's. So both my brother and I are both in good hands in that way. We were blessed with a thick head of hair. So yeah, it's funny. It is, I do get that a lot. I never used to. But once I started, seeing my guy Dino here in Ottawa, 7 years ago, that's kind of when all of a sudden the conversation started to change. So whenever I go see him, I always tell him he created this monster. So he's the real brains behind the operation.
Yeah, oh my goodness, man.
What a line, a sport full of receding hairlines.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, that's what people generally talk about with hockey, right? But now he's breaking the trend. And as I understand it, you're a pretty good hockey player yourself. I did my background homework. I saw you played AAA or growing up and stuff. How did you get into being a hockey player to a hockey journalist and now Hockey Night in Canada? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I should say, I guess technically I played AAA, but, I grew up in a small town on Vancouver Island, Campbell River, as you mentioned. And so playing AAA there, it's a much different scene than playing, if you said you played AAA in the GTHL or, in Montreal or in a bigger city with more kids to choose from. The level wasn't quite up to par, but I think like a lot of kids, it was interesting. Like my parents weren't necessarily huge hockey fanatics before my brother and I got into playing it, but just seeing it on TV. And I remember in kindergarten, I had friends that played pre-novice hockey, and I just wanted to be part of it and took to it and played it my entire life growing up. Up until graduating high school, and then I went off to pursue a career in this field. So that brought me to Calgary for 2 years at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. It was a great 2 years. It's funny, actually, I applied there. That was like plan B, and I also applied to what was formerly known as Ryerson in Toronto, and I thought that was like where I needed to be, and I got rejected there. So I had to swallow my ego, and I thought it was like, man, this is too bad. Now I got to go to Calgary. It's only a 2-year program instead of 4. Like I'll never be in a good, I won't be in as good of a spot once I graduate as I would have been had I gone to Ryerson. But it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me. So yeah, and throughout my 2 years there, it was unbelievable. The amount of hands-on projects and assignments you do there. It really felt like we're, by second year, we're running our own newsroom, both on the radio and television side. And so from that point on, it was a very much a right place, right time, that I was working with someone at the school there that at the time her father was the news director at Sportsnet. And what I thought was just an opportunity to send my demo tape out to him just to get some feedback, because I thought that would have been the coolest thing, to have someone in a position like that to let me know, hey, work on this, just a bit of guidance in any way, shape, or form. I ended up, it fell into the lap of Scott Moore, who at the time was the president of Rogers Broadcasting. And, he invited me out to Toronto to do an interview and an audition in their studio there. And so then waited over that following summer of, what ultimately was going to happen, if they were going to hire me. I'll forever be grateful for them taking a shot on me, that early in my life and my career. I mean, I had just graduated a few months prior from post-secondary, moved out to Toronto in the fall of 2013. And it's been a really cool ride ever since.
Oh, that's so cool. So is that SAIT?
Yeah, they call it SAIT out there, but yes.
Yeah, okay. So I saw a really cool article that you were featured in a couple days ago all about you. So we'll leave that in the description.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll leave that there. But
it's interesting for you because you might want to one day pursue this field as a job.
Yeah.
So it's good for you to hear about like how people who are already in the field got into it, because it could be pretty hard sometimes to get into a field like this.
Oh yeah, it's so competitive from what it looks like from the outside. Like I'm not sure if it's what I want to do, but even just talking with you twice a week on the podcast here, it's and what I see online, it could be a cutthroat industry as my boss Blair would call it. So
yeah, it can be. And how when other people from the industry would come and talk to us when I was going to school 9 years ago, what they would advise us in terms of how to get a foot in the door. I mean, I think the advice it would be different now compared to then. Like it's changed that much in a relatively short period of time. But like doing things like what you guys are doing now, like having your own podcast, getting reps and doing this goes a long way, right? Like you can, before you needed to be at a news station, at a network, you can do so much on your own now. It's great experience. You learn about a whole bunch of different areas, as I'm sure you guys have already, about how this all works, how to work a microphone, how to set up a camera, how to edit, how to do all of that, as opposed to, even well before my time. Well, I'm just a reporter. I interview people, I write my story, and it's up to, everyone else. Once I lay my voices down and shoot my stand up, they go and put it together and look nice. To be multi-skilled can go a long way. And so if that is something you want to do, David, I think you're at least on the right path.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But
I can say I've learned a ton about editing during.
Yeah, John does no editing, so only one of us can speak on that. But I can't handle a camera for my life. So, before we move on to hockey, though, I gotta ask because I'm a huge Canucks fan. So, I gotta know who your favorite team was growing up, because you're right there in BC, so it has to be the Canucks.
Yeah, it's funny. It was for a lot of years. It was any team but Vancouver.
Oh no!
How that first started. I know it's totally different now. Like how that first started, I don't know why, but eventually became like it was just the kids that I went to school with, and you just felt like the whole Canuck fan base was just so insufferable at times. And that was like, I was in high school when they were at their peak, right? When the Sedins were at their best. Luongo was in goal. It was Bieksa, it was Kessler, it was Burrows. And it's funny now working with Kevin Bieksa at Hockey Night. I remember the one night actually finally having the stomach to tell him, I'm like, I hated you and I hated your team when I was growing up. But of course now I look back and think, man, how lucky we were to be able to watch that team, 82 games a season. It was too bad they ultimately came up short in 2011, because I think they'll be looked back at as one of those teams that should have won. In the salary cap era that just didn't quite. So Paul Kariya was my favorite player growing up. So with that, I love the Mighty Ducks when he was there, and then through family, it became the Calgary Flames. And so that was another neat selling point about being able to go to SAIT in Calgary, having access to the Saddle Dome and to going to a bunch of games there over my 2 years living in the city. But now, of course, it's all completely different when you work in this business. You got people that you get to know that you have a lot of respect for, and you root for them to do well. But you just cheer for good games, good drama, all those sort of things, a good story to come out of it. You're not so much concerned about which team is the one with the W next to it at the end of the night.
Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. Yeah. John, let's get to our favorite Canadian sportsbook, Bet99. When you guys register, use the link in our bio and make sure to use the code Uncontested1. And whenever you bet, use our code Uncontested1 for plenty of offers and rewards. Let's talk a bit about Bet99. Bet99 is a Canadian sportsbook and casino. They offer in-play betting, player props, a cash-out option, and many more great products. There are a variety of sports available on the website to bet on, including NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB, and MMA. Bet99 works smoothly on both desktop and mobile. The Bet99 mobile app can be downloaded from the homepage of the website. Depositing and withdrawing funds is hassle-free with a number of well-known methods available to use, so you know your money is safe and secure. The website can be viewed in both English and French, and customer service is available 24/7 on live chat. Go to bet99.com and make an account to get started. Please gamble responsibly. 19 plus, play responsibly, and check the bio for details on where it's available to bet on. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Canucks Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. Again, for all disclaimers on location and whatnot, check the bio and gamble responsibly.
Yeah, so let's get into hockey. We're going to go through all the Canadian teams over here. Just ask a really general question about each one because we got an expert on today.
Yes, we do.
So let's start off with our hometown team, as much as you don't want to talk about it, the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, the Habs have a very young lineup, particularly on offense, going into the season. What do you expect from these young guys, and are they going to be bottom of the league? Where do you see them falling?
Yeah, I think it's great for them that there's really no external expectations or pressure. I think it's not an easy market to come into as the first overall draft pick at the best of times, and in terms of trying to create an environment where the pitchforks don't come out immediately. This may be the best place for Uri Slafkovsky, your best situation for him to be into, where they're not expected to win right away. If he doesn't score 20 goals his rookie season, questions aren't going to be asked. Hopefully, is this guy a bust already? So I think it just allows him to kind of get comfortable, to adjust to the NHL game, assuming he does spend the majority of the season up with the Canadiens. But I'm really, interested just to see under a full year of Martin St. Louis of, how much growth can this team have? You saw some great strides made with them almost immediately when he took over last spring. And then, they kind of fell back to kind of where they were a little bit, just the bump wore off, I guess, towards the end of the year. And it just been, such a long season for so many guys there, coming off, the shortened off season the year before where they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. So, guy like Cole Caufield, he seemed like he was completely unlocked once St. Louis took over. So what's his ceiling this season, and is he really just going to be scratching the surface? Some of the moments he's had already in the one preseason game I saw against New Jersey, the goal he had, it was like, my goodness, you could see him do that time and time again all year here. With Brendan Gallagher finally healthy, I just think, can he get him, his career back on track after a couple of tough years, production wise, health wise as well. I just think there's a real neat opportunity for, as you mentioned, with how young the roster is, for them to take a step in their growth. Not unlike where, I live in Ottawa here, where the Senators were for a few years. They got rid of a number of, players that they felt were not part of their future. It's a bit different case in Montreal, of course, in that, guys like Shea Weber and, we'll see what ultimately happens with Carey Price, that, their bodies aren't willing to hold up anymore. But now the door opens for some younger players that they see as part of their future. And, to be able to take a step as a group here, it sets them up for, really they're looking at 3, 4, 5 years down the road under this new management. How long will it take ultimately for them to be competitive again? Because it seemed like under the Bergevin regime, it was like, well, there's no appetite for a rebuild here. So there's the constant feeling of whatever, right? Because we refused to call it a rebuild. It was a reset, right? This is going to be a short-term thing and we're going to be right back to where we were in the playoffs. I think ultimately that did set them back a little bit. Now you could say they benefited from the Stanley Cup final run, no question. But now it's going to take a bit of time for things to be in place again. And they seem like they've got the management group that has the patience for it. They've got the coach that they believe in. So I don't expect them to be in the mix for a playoff spot per se, but I do expect that there will be a team that, will have a full building every night, that will have a great fan base behind them, because, even if the success in terms of wins and losses isn't there, it's an incredibly intelligent fan base, as you guys know, that can get behind a team that, maybe they're not ready to win just yet, but they're a team that, they're a fan base that can sense a team that's on the cusp of getting there one day. So they should be fun to watch, I hope.
Yeah, this is the most optimism that I've seen from my friends and just Habs fans in general in a long time.
Yeah.
And I for one hope that they lose as many games as possible, but that we see the young guys have fun moments. But I want Connor Bedard, man, at the end of that year more than anything.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's incredible just what in terms of all the talk of what the next year's draft class could look like, and beyond Bedard, right? There's, I think, I'm not as well versed in the junior scene, but there's a number of names, from my understanding, that could be some real winners if a team were to land on them.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree, bang on there with everything, except for calling Habs fans super intelligent. I don't know about that one, but. We'll move on. We'll go all the way out west to my favorite NHL team, the Vancouver Canucks. This season, obviously, specifically, there's a lot of focus on Elias Pettersson. Year started last year, and it was really miserable for him. Really, he talked about what he had going on with himself. He felt like the first half of the season, back half of the season, two different me's. The expectations for this year's team are quite high. Boudreau said it himself. They don't make the playoffs, it'll be a disaster. What do you make of the Vancouver Canucks going to this season? Are they a playoff team in your opinion? What do you think of them?
I certainly think they can be. I think the fact that they locked up JT Miller said that they're still in the position that they want to win now, and that's with a new management there as well, right? This isn't the old group that wants to keep everyone together. This was a fresh outlook between Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford, and they believe that Miller was part of the future here and kept him around. I am curious about how this Bo Horvat situation is going to play out. The fact that he hasn't got an extension done just yet. I think just listening to people that are much more in tune with what's going on there than I am, it seemed like there was a bit of surprise that it went very far into the summer at all. Without a new deal in place. So, I've got such respect for Horvat as a player, as a person. I hope something ultimately gets worked out there, and that it doesn't become too much of a distraction once the games start being played for keeps here. But I think they were a much different team under Boudreau. It couldn't get much more, as I'm sure you remember, more miserable under Travis Green. I remember doing those last few games when they were out our way here between Montreal and Ottawa, just before they ultimately made a coaching change, and you could just tell something was off and something was coming. And sure enough, they ultimately brought in Boudreau. But I think they could be in the mix for a playoff spot. I love their goaltender. I think they've got a capable blue line, and they've got enough scoring power. Hopefully, the issue to Brock Besser there, the injury, first week into camp, as tough luck and timing as that is, I hope for his sake and the team's sake that doesn't become too much of an issue once he gets back into the lineup and there's no real lingering effects that hamper his production. But I'm in on the Canucks this year. I think they're a team in the mix to make the playoffs for sure.
That's music to my ears. I like that.
Let's head on to the Sens if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm good for that.
So obviously the Senators fan base, as we've seen just from our views, is just hyped for this season.
They might be the most hyped fan base in the NHL. Coming at us, they're like, make a vlog in Ottawa. I'm like, okay, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
They're pumped.
Out of all people to come to, it's us that they want to vlog from. But there's a lot of hype there. But obviously they have some holes in that lineup. So do you see them being able to compete for a playoff spot in a pretty stacked division?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'll talk about just the hype here first. Living here, you guys, I mean, walking around in the summertime, whether, it was at the Canadian Women's Open a few weeks back, the amount of conversations I had with people that said, I've made the decision to get season tickets this year, or I got half season tickets, or I have plans to go to way more games than I did in years past, or I'm actually excited to watch this season. Things that I hadn't heard really anywhere the previous 4 years or so. It's just a remarkable turnaround, and almost the perfect storm of their young guys that were already here, those that needed to get locked up they're continuing to get better. And then, of course, the additions made over the summer, and Giroux and DeBrincat and Cam Talbot. There's plenty of reasons to be excited again. And just the shift in how the team is interacting within the community, some of the topics that they're tackling and what they're valuing. It's quite something, just the turnaround in a few short months. It's like a brand new, in a lot of ways, a brand new organization, just in terms of, the feel around it and how they're going about approaching things on the ice. It's going to be a real challenge, as you mentioned. Like as much as they look better on paper, are they enough better to sneak in this season? It's tough to say. Like I'm hesitant to believe that they will be. I could see them ultimately coming up short. They should be in a position where when the trade deadline rolls around, or even like U.S. Thanksgiving, that they're not out of it like they have been the last number of years. It'd be great for them to just experience playing meaningful games into March, because this core hasn't had that yet. Not even a guy like Thomas Chabot, who's now the longest tenured player. Like, he's really never been part of any type of meaningful stretch of games as an Ottawa Senator, which is sad because he was drafted 7 years ago. So I think it's just, when you look at the fact that they were minus 39 goal differential last year, they were 27 points. They missed the last wild card spot by. So are they going to improve? I think it's fair to say, yes, they will. But are they going to improve enough where they can overcome those numbers? It's going to be difficult. I think they're a team that should have, no issue scoring on most nights, that I think they're going to have better goaltending. Is their defense good enough to withstand some of the other top dogs in their division and the conference for that matter? It may still be another year of growth before they're really ready to tackle that. But they should be a team that, a lot of times could be must watch for a lot of fans.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. And Ottawa people have come at me in the comments for this, but it's just when I look at the blue line, I like Chabot, I like Zub, and I think Sanderson's going to be a player. I haven't been following his development super closely, but everything I'm hearing, like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be. But realistically, you got two defensemen, and then you're taking a bank on Sanderson. If I'm a Sens fan, and I know they've been so busy, I want to see a trade. I want to see a defenseman added to the fold here. There was talks of Chychrun. Do you get the sense, being close to the organization, that there's a defenseman on the way to Ottawa, or are they just going to go in with this group and run it and see what happens?
Unless something comes along Pierre Dorian's desk between now and the start of the season, I'm not too sure. But the thing is, he's made it clear that that's been, a priority to try out and go to find someone of that caliber. But I think it just this summer goes to show how difficult it is to actually pull that off, because you look at what else he was able to do. That was, I thought, a really good deal in terms of what they gave up ultimately to get a 40 goal scorer in Alex DeBrincat, to convince Claude Giroux that this is where he wants to sign, to get a goaltender. I know he's 35 years old now, but still Cam Talbot's coming off, a couple of really good seasons in Minnesota. So he was active. He was able to pull off some moves that I think a lot of people around this market started to question whether he was going to be able to do. So, you have to assume, that he tried to bring in a top four defenseman. It just didn't happen. And on the Chychrun front, by all accounts, the ask from the other side in order to get that young defenseman, I don't think it's quite worth it, at least from Ottawa's perspective, just because, I think, Elliot Friedman threw out Shane Pinto there as one of the names that Arizona would have been asking about. I wouldn't want to give up that player. The fact that Chychrun's a left shot, and on the left side of the defense, Ottawa's in good shape. You mentioned Chabot, Jake Sanderson, those are both lefties. Nick Holden to play down in your bottom pairing as a veteran guy. He's there on the left side as well. To force one of those guys to now have to flip onto the other side, you got the potential that, maybe the chemistry and just the flow isn't what you would want it to be. And to, the player's no fault of his own, Chychrun's got quite a checkered past in terms of injuries. He's having trouble staying healthy. So you pull off this big, massive move, and now the guy's only available 40 some games a year. then you gave up a lot for a guy that's only in the lineup half the time. I mean, that's not ideal either. So they maybe seems like they're in a position where they're forced to go with who they have in house right now. And that's why, like I say, as it stands, as we have this conversation here today, that could be a reason why they're just not quite yet to get over that hump of, okay, we're in the mix for a playoff spot to now we're a playoff team.
Do you hate the offseason? With Bench Clears, you'll be able to rep your team's colors all year long. Bench Clears is the most comfortable hockey tank you'll ever wear. Their tanks are 100% polyester, making them incredibly soft and breathable, as well as having a clear design completely flush with the fabric. On top of their high-quality tanks, they have just released their new hockey shorts, women's racerback shirts, and hockey sunglasses, all available with your favorite team's design. To order, go to their website, benchclears.com, also available in the description, and use the promo code UncontestedSports10. That's UncontestedSports10. All sizing and info is available right there.
So obviously this year, Kyle, a bunch of the same conversation always at the Leafs. Like, they go into the end of the last season, always disappointing, don't make it out of round one. You sit on the off season, they come back to training camp, and all the hype starts again, even though people say that they won't get themselves excited. Toronto. There was a bit more optimism at the end of last year's playoff round, really, because people are like, oh, they actually put up a really good fight and all this stuff.
It's a great team.
Against Tampa. They have to make it out of round one this year. Obviously, we say this every year. What are your expectations for the Leafs this upcoming season?
Yeah, it's this is a tough one because you talked about the history, and I was there last year against Tampa, and I remember going on the second intermission there of Game 6 after they scored those two late, and it was like, holy crap, like they may actually do this. Finally, break the curse of trying to get out of the first round for the first time, since Joe Nieuwendyk was in the lineup. And then, now we're back here again, and it's the same old story. What am I expecting? I mean, it's clear that they are an elite regular season team. I felt underwhelmed by some of the moves that they made over the off season, but what do I know? I think the fact that you brought in someone like Michael Bunting, someone like David Kampf the year previous, that didn't exactly jump off the page at you when those transactions were announced, and they both ended up being real quality complementary pieces in their own right over the course of the season. And so clearly, as they targeted someone like Calle Jarnkrok, and we'll see Dennis Mulligan's having a really good preseason, and will that continue? They're trying to find those types again, and maybe the fourth line is a little more of a speed unit as opposed to the heavy veteran, the Wayne Simmons and the Jason Spetzes of years past. I know Simmons is still in the mix there, and maybe there's still a role to play throughout this year on this team, but I just expect that they have no choice but to put their head down and get into the playoffs first and foremost. Because you can't snap your finger and get to game one of the first round. You've got to go through the 82 games first. So I expect there's going to be some twists and turns, as there inevitably is. I expect there's going to be some questions about the goaltending at certain points, and I expect that they're going to be right smack dab into a first round matchup against another Atlantic Division foe, whether it's Tampa again, whether it's Boston, whether it's Florida. And until they finally win 4 games before the other team and are on the right side of the handshake line, we're going to be sitting here wondering, is this team capable of getting over the hump? The fact that Kyle Dubas came out and said, we've talked about it, where in terms of his contract situation, he's into his final year here now, and that they're going to wait and see how this year plays out. So if it's another first round exit, I think this will be it for him, and they'll be moving in a different direction. So there's a lot riding on this year, though it's felt for the last number of years we've been saying the same thing. But I truly do wonder if it's the same old song and dance this time around. Will there be some major surgery as opposed to just some little little incisions around the edges. Will it finally be time? Will the organization finally decide that this group just isn't cut out for getting it done, and something major needs to change? It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let you go here.
Yeah, I mean, like, what can you say about the Leafs? I think anybody they play, except for maybe Boston, they probably lose. The Atlantic.
I don't know. I think this is the year they get out of round one, man. Like I said it last year too, but this year I legitimately believe they're a better team than Florida. Last year, going into the season, I thought Florida was a better team on paper. I think they're better on paper than Florida, and I thought they were better than Tampa last year too, and they showed it like in that round one. It was so close, right? So I don't know. We'll see, but ask about the Oilers here.
So the Edmonton Oilers had a very good year last year. Didn't make the Battle of Alberta much of a battle at all. Got to the third round. Got beat by Colorado, as everybody does. How do they improve on a year like that? Like, how do you make it so that you get to the Stanley Cup Finals now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that group went through it goes a long way. The organization believes clearly that Jay Woodcroft is their guy by locking him up as head coach and removing the interim tag. And let's not forget, guys, like that team was just on the verge of going completely off the rails, early January last year as well, right? When they made the move to, move on from Dave Tippett and bring in Jay Woodcroft, right? Like there was the ordeal with, Leon Draisaitl with the reporter there at the podium, and things got awkward. You could tell there was just a lot of tension around the team. And then next thing you know, they're into the Western Conference Final, 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup. So it's remarkable how quickly things can change. But I don't think it's no secret that goaltending was an issue last year. Full credit and the world of respect to someone like Mike Smith for how he battles, even though if he doesn't have it on a certain night, you're always going to get maximum effort from him when he's in there. But I believe someone like Jack Campbell can go in there, and Toronto fans saw great Jack Campbell, saw some average Jack Campbell at times, but I think when he's healthy, he is more than capable, and the guys in front of him are going to want to play for him to no end. So I think with the addition of him there alone, and this team that again has another year of experience for guys like Connor and Leon to have a little taste of getting to the third round and having a bit better understanding about how much harder it gets once you do get there. They could be a threat to, again. I don't see them taking a step back. I wouldn't be surprised if they're back to where they were a season ago. I think over the course of the year, we'll probably have a better sense of if they're a team that's really ready to knock on the door to ultimately get to the final few games of the season. But after so many years of futility and the butt end of the wrong jokes, it was great to see them finally turn things around and to ignite their fan base again. And I think they're in a position where now they're potentially ready to even go a little further. Let's see.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up here, super short little 1-2 minute segment. Are you ready for a few rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Perfect. A lot of talk about the NHL playoff format. Do you think that should be changed? Yes or no?
Ooh. I like yes, I'd like to look at the option of some sort of play-in to have a little more teams in the mix, and whether it's just a one game for the bottom, the 9th to 10th or the 7th to 10th that play a one game play-in. I love the drama of that just to get things going.
Alrighty. You've been to quite a few NHL rinks as a host for Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet. Your favorite rink to watch a game?
Montreal on a Saturday night. It doesn't get much better.
Whatever you do, just don't call it the Mecca of hockey, because that's an ongoing debate we have. Obviously covering the Sens during training camp here. Over under 70 points for Claude Giroux this season.
Ooh, good question. I'll go under, but very slightly.
Okay. Who do you think will be the best Canadian team this season? Just to gain you some enemies as from the fan bases here.
Yeah. I'll say Edmonton.
Okay, and then last question here. Your favorite hockey Twitter follow?
Oh man. Good question. Really good question. Oh gosh.
You can give a couple. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah. I'm trying to think which avenue I want to go down here. I've gotta. I hate tooting his own horn, but I'll have to say Elliot Friedman.
Yeah, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Oh, that's a good answer. But thank you so much for joining us, Kyle, here for episode 61. It's a huge honor for both of us. And we know, obviously, covering training camp, you got a bunch of stuff going on. So making the time for us and coming on, it means so much to us.
Hey, no, the pleasure was all mine, boys. It's great to be on with you and to talk a little hockey. So enjoy the upcoming year and all the best going forward with your show and everything else going on in your lives.
Thank you so much.